thank you all for joining us. We do not have a presentation tonight. This is simply an opportunity where we wanted to invite some of our locations that, you know, have larger groups of people that come out to kind of just talk, you know, to each other, ask questions, because, you know, we can certainly pass on experiences that we have based off of what we hear with other people from, you know, what other coordinators are doing. But I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of get it from the source. And, you know, if you have a particular, you know, something that works really great for you and you want to share it, or if you have an issue that you're trying to figure out what is the best way to do this, you know, you can ask it to the group, and maybe someone else has already figured out a way to kind of handle that. So, you know, obviously we want to make sure everyone's kind of not talking at the same time, but, you know, let's just all use our manners and go ahead and if anyone wants to start it off, we'll go for it.
Hey, this is Michelle from Baltimore National Cemetery.
Hi, Michelle.
Thank you so much for doing this. We have 37,000 plus graves at our cemetery, and my biggest issue is how to control the boxes when they are delivered. Sad to say, our adult volunteers who want to place wreaths don't follow instructions very well and just help themselves and go off wherever they want. So we've actually resorted to shrink wrapping our boxes so that they don't walk off. I'm just trying to figure out what other larger sites do.
So do you mean when they're delivered off of the truck or actually on wreath day?
So on wreath day. So when they're delivered off the truck, they usually come in on Wednesday or Thursday, and we place them whatever, because we never have enough to do our whole cemetery. So on average, we have about 6,000 to 10,000 wreaths. So we choose a section of the cemetery and we'll put the boxes there. With COVID, the last 2 years, we've done them in shifts. So we've been limited to the number of people we were allowed in the cemetery. So we would have, you know, like 400 boxes in the first group and 400 boxes the second, third, and fourth group. But you can't just, you know, have X number of people come in and say, just do this group of boxes. They just decide they want to help themselves and just take them. And it's, you know, we don't have a staff large enough to corral the boxes. We don't have, it's an open cemetery, so we don't have anywhere where we can put the boxes. So like I said, last year we resorted to shrink wrapping them, which there's got to be a better way.
Just to let you know what we did last year, and it's all because of COVID, we actually staged the wreaths by the administration building. They have a staging area with 6 lanes. We had the people pull into those lanes in lanes 1, 3, 5. The wreaths were placed in lanes 2, 4, 6. So as people drove into the cemetery, went to the admin building, they would pull up, and depending on how many people are in the vehicle, that's how many wreaths that were placed into their vehicles.
Okay.
That way you can control how many were put out and who gets them, and you can make sure nobody puts them out until you want to start.
Right. Okay.
I can, this is Kevin Iverson in North Dakota. I can tell you what we do. We used to bring our wreaths in on a flatbed trailer. We actually receive our wreaths at the at Fort Lincoln State Park, and we cross load them from the semis into car trailers, 22, 25-foot car trailers that either individuals donate for us to use or rental companies allow us to use for free. And then I've got a set of drivers, mainly out of the National Guard, that will loan their pickups to move those over. We do not open the doors until after our ceremony is over. That is controlled. And we like to say that we do it to avoid riots, because we've always got 1 or 2 people that want to come in and place the wreaths before the ceremony. We just do not allow that to happen.
One possibility too is to get U-Haul or some other pods or somebody like that to donate some trucks or some trailers or something where you can actually offload the wreaths into those and lock them up, like he was talking about, lock them up.
Right.
That way you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, didn't even think about doing something like that. We just set the boxes out, and we've done it where we leave them in boxes and we hand them out from the box in whatever area we are in our cemetery. We've tried taking them out of the box and, you know, have everybody come down like a cattle gate, for lack of a better thing, down a cattle, and then hand them out. But at some point in time, it just always gets out of hand, and people just help themselves and they get placed in areas they're not supposed to be placed. And it just gets very frustrating. So the last 2 years with COVID, I have to say, has been a blessing because we've been limited to the number. When we had our ceremony before COVID, we would have upwards of 2,000 or more people show up. So when you're trying to corral 2,000 people and get them to do single line, and they just don't want to do it. So the last 2 years, I've liked that we've been doing shifts. So we do like 9 to 10:30, 10:30 to 12, 12 to 1:30, 1:30 to 3. We limit the number of people that comes each shift. And then all the boxes are divvied up, you know, equally amongst the shifts. And it's worked out very nicely, but we would like to open it back up. But it's like, how do you do that and control all those boxes? And I love the idea of maybe the trailer or a U-Haul or something.
I'm interested
One of the
in,
things that I've found is that everybody really is very amiable to donating their stuff. All we have to do is ask.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have that in Memphis, Tennessee. We previously, before COVID, what we would do, we'd be able to secure the boxes when they were delivered. And because we had so much issues with wreaths being evenly kind of distributed throughout the cemetery, we would actually have volunteers that would show up early that would assist us. And we'd lay wreaths all throughout the drive around the entire cemetery. And then after the ceremony, we would have grave specifics and then release everybody out into the cemetery so that wreaths were actually placed on every section, not just one.
I've tried what you said. And we've had people just show up at 8 in the morning when I'm out pre-placing,
Yeah.
like you just said. In whatever sections I was planning on doing would pre-load those areas. And then I'd go and, you know, start getting my honor guards ready, my color guards ready, dignitaries, getting my speakers ready, my military wreath bearers ready, you know, all the queep that you got to do to run the ceremony. So I'm not standing guard over these piles of wreaths.
And we
And
can't.
what was happening was people were coming out and all those wreaths would be placed even before we had the ceremony. So after the ceremony, I mean, we're in New England, it's freezing and it's outdoors. So I've always kept my ceremonies brief, maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And with that, if, let's say, within 5 minutes, I've already heard that people are complaining that there's no wreaths to lay because people went out and attacked those piles first thing in the morning.
Correct.
And I've tried every possible thing you could do. I've tried to have people guide them. But what Kevin was saying actually became the fruition to what worked. I pre-staged a tractor trailer, all the wreaths were unboxed. We had already gotten rid of, recycled all the cardboard. And then we had, like what I believe Glenda was saying, we had trailers donated by local organizations or local people, and they just pull up. And we had volunteers loading the little trailers from the tractor trailer and going to the assigned areas that we're going to do on, because we have over 80,000 veterans interred in my cemetery, and the most we've ever received was probably 25,000 wreaths.
Right.
So each year, if I did, you know, knee-jerk reaction, I did section 1 last year, I'm doing section 2 this year.
Right.
So, but no, great idea. Kevin nailed it right on the head. I mean, you can't corral these people. They're like trying to herd cats.
Exactly.
yeah, we first had a veterans, where we learned it, actually, we had a veterans group show up and kind of take over our event. But one of the things that I'm hearing that we, and if I'm hearing all the other groups talk about placing wreaths first thing in the morning. I would never do that for a couple of reasons. One is the ceremony is such a powerful event for us. And the fact that we invite individuals who've sponsored graves to come forward to those, come and get those wreaths and place them. There's such an important personal connection that creates that we would never give that up. We would never, I can never see us going to a point where we're allowing wreaths to be placed before the ceremony. That the ceremony creates too much emotional high for us. This will be our 9th year of 100% coverage in our cemetery. Now we're not 80,000. We have just over 8,000 graves in the North Dakota Veterans Cemetery, but I will have 1,500 people show up at this event.
Yeah.
Excuse me, it's Janelle from Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery here in St. Louis. We have over 200,000 grave sites in our cemetery, being one of the largest national cemeteries. What we do allow prior to the cemetery is the families that have sponsored the wreath as self-placement wreaths to come and pick those up beginning at 8 o'clock so they can avoid the crowds that come. We literally have thousands and thousands of people show up at our cemetery, and we only have one way into our cemetery as big as we are currently. So that's a thought for any of you, so the families can spend some quiet time with their loved ones, and we've gotten some very positive feedback on that.
Can I
No,
comment?
we do that as well.
This
We
is
do
Jim.
too.
Julie,
Yes, yes.
Julie.
Yeah.
This is
Just a
Misha
second. Carrie, let's-
Richardson down in Sarasota. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Tired? I got a lot to throw in. I came in late and I apologize. First of all, in 2019, that was our last big year. We had over 5,000 people in attendance. I think our wreath count that year was 16,400 and we had 100% coverage. I had the Young Marines and the Military Academy stand guard at all the sections. Our semis came in that morning, we offloaded, and there was the Patriot Guard Riders, our Young Marines, and our Military Academy standing guard at the sections, and they would not allow anyone to take a wreath. They were told to send people to Patriot Plaza, which is our big atrium, for our ceremony, and we had over 5,000 people in attendance. Toward the end of this, in the beginning of the ceremony, I asked for everyone present that had a loved one interred there to please stand and be recognized. And it was absolutely overwhelming, and it put everyone that was there to be greedy, and I don't mean that mean, but it put everyone in a moral checkpoint.
Excellent.
At the end of the ceremony, my gunny sergeant
Oh.
took the microphone, asked that these individuals stand once again, and then very politely dismissed them to go lay their loved one's wreath first. And everyone, as he said, keep your butts in your seat. And it went over well. During COVID, for the last 2 years, we've had to have multiple days. We're going to have multiple days again this year. But I allow I mark grave sites for family, reserved for family. We have a truckload of wreaths that come in early. I have them staged in a private area, and at the National Cemeteries, guys, they have a 24-hour security guard. So you've got to rely on your cemetery director and the grounds maintenance director and the security people to keep an eye on those wreaths, and nobody touched them the last 2 years. So I kind of set it in place by being so firm in 2017 about the way we were going to do this. And it's really gone over very well. I get a lot of positive feedback. Last year we staged in the Cortege lanes, did similar to what the other gentleman said. Every other lane was cars. And then I had my wreath army with me, and I probably had 150 people offloading cases of wreaths. We got our 17,000 offloaded in like 24 minutes. And then they drove through and we loaded them in their trunk. So there's a lot of options. It's how you, what I have found here in our community, it's how you present it.
Mhm.
And you can be really firm about it, but be very sweet and kind. But, having those individuals stand and be recognized was extremely humbling. And people realized this wasn't a party and it wasn't a race to see how fast we can get all these wreaths out. And they did it with a lot of solemnness and a lot of respect, which is what I wanted. So that's what
That's great. It's all good suggestions there. I know you guys have done a great ceremony. Justin, I do see you had your hand raised for a little bit too. Sorry, I was not watching the hands raised, so I'm glad you spoke up, Misha. Justin, if you want to go ahead and then.
Yes, just a couple things that we usually do. Last year we did 18,000. We were about 4,000 short. Right now we're gonna be real short. Good ideas for me. I'm gonna run it past our director, reference to unloading the wreaths. We unload on Friday. Usually we do it in the morning, but I'm gonna try to change it to the afternoon or the evening. In reference to the VA policy and the wreath policy, reference to Jewish markers and Muslim markers. I talked to a couple rabbis here, and we have chosen to place pebbles on the top of the Jewish markers. According to the rabbis, the Jews would place stones when they would visit a grave site in order to avoid being harassed by the Roman soldiers. So this goes way back, and he said that is their way of showing their loved one that they remembered them, they visited them, and they would leave a pebble. So we're going to place pebbles throughout the cemetery in each section with a sign explaining that, and then we put that on our Facebook page as well to explain to people what the policy is, and that way they can still honor our Jewish heroes.
Did your cemetery director okay the pebbles, or did they ask you to
Yes.
do some larger stones?
No, he okayed the pebbles. We're gonna go to Home Depot. If they didn't donate, that's great. If not, no big deal. We'll purchase them ourselves.
We've done that since 2016, and one of the things that we do is we have the Jewish American veterans come out on Sunday before Wreath Day.
Mhm.
And place the stones. And what was great about that last year was I got to do a little mini ceremony for them and really explain to them what Wreaths Across America was, and how it's not about a wreath, it's about a visual symbol of showing that person was remembered today. And they were very, very moved that, number one, we included them, and number two, that about what the program is. So we've got a lot of people that don't place wreaths very excited about Wreaths Across America.
Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of complaints last year, and not from the Jewish people. It was the Christians. They were upset that they were not allowed to place a wreath in front of a Jewish marker, and we had to explain to them why. It's not our choice, but it's just the policy and the belief, and that's something we have to honor as well. We do have some Jewish families that want a remembrance wreath placed, so those are marked. And similar to what you all do with the gravesite specific, we have the Patriot Guard riders have a locked trailer, and we direct the families over to the trailer to pick up their wreath. And the day before, like this year on the 17th, on the 16th, we go out throughout the cemetery and place a notice that the marker is reserved for family only. And then that way nobody's placing a wreath on their loved ones. And then that way, anytime on Saturday, they can come get the wreath and make sure they can place it on their loved one's marker.
I think it's also a great teaching opportunity too on the reason why, and also, maybe even having that conversation and having the people from the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith explaining to other volunteers why, and still paying their respects and engaging with the program, even though they're not able to actually place that wreath on there.
Hi, everybody. This is Karen Worcester, and I just want to say how happy I am to see everybody on here. I get really excited to put faces to places. Actually, on the policy, our policy is to provide wreaths for the families of veterans of the Jewish faith if they want to place them, because several years ago, I actually met with the Jewish war veterans down in Washington, D.C., 7 lovely gentlemen who I sat with for some time and couldn't agree on a policy because it matters which way they practice their own faith. So I think we do need to be careful that it's according to the cemetery where you are, matters where you are in the country, how people practice their faith. But we do want to make sure that we make wreaths available, because I will tell you at Arlington alone, we've had very, very upset people. In fact, we have a great story about the woman of the Jewish faith who actually, after several attempts to see their loved one got a wreath, ended up duct taping it to the grave. Can't make this up. And we also, I remember a few years ago, had a rabbi speak, and he actually spoke to that you can't just assume. So you do need to know that it's made available if they want to place them. The same with Muslim. It's up to them if they want to place a wreath, if they don't want to place a wreath. But we can't just assume. And I agree with Renee. The best thing that came out of that meeting was the opportunity to discuss the fact that people of all faiths serve. But as far as our own policy, it's that we do make the wreaths available for anybody of the Jewish faith that does want to place a wreath, because we can't just take it for granted. And also what you said about it's the well-meaning Christians sometimes that think it's offensive, and people may have those families have placed a wreath. So we just need to be careful that you can't put one label on everybody, because people believe differently. So we do provide those wreaths if they want them.
If any of you that do national cemeteries, keep in mind that last year we did, as a part of the guidelines that the National Cemetery Administration provided, was that they have, a list that they maintain where families can opt in or opt out of having that wreath. And so you always want to check with them to get that list from them. My understanding is there's not that many that have a very long list. It's usually a handful of people, if any. So if you do our location coordinator for National Cemetery, just make sure you're communicating with your cemetery director to see if they have that list, get that list. And then what you want to do is just always, check those graves following the wreath laying to make sure that a well-meaning volunteer didn't remove a wreath or place a wreath that was supposed to be there.
The other thing, sorry, I just want to add that and don't get into a battle with somebody. If you have somebody from the cemetery, somebody from the press, and they're not accepting what we're saying, then Amber will love this, but send them to Amber so that you don't get some of you, if you get talking to the press, sometimes they like to try to get a one line out of you that you wish you could take back the next day. So
Yeah, they like to fluster you in that situation.
Right.
So it's best not to argue it. And to Renee's point, and it is a teaching opportunity in every situation. It's a teaching opportunity, but yeah, we're not looking for anyone to get in any fights. This was a big conversation that Julie and I had last year with the NCA about national cemetery properties. They don't want people. If there's an issue, you can go to your cemetery director and we'll certainly work through it with you. But you can offer the information and people will choose to take that or not and carry on. And send them to me if there's any media questions about it. Happy to handle it.
Justin, I did want to jump back because I think you got cut off earlier, and I know you had some questions.
Thank you, Julie. It's Justin McKellar. I'm from Dayton National Cemetery, Dayton, Ohio. We have approximately 60,000 graves in our area. Sadly, my largest number has only been about 7,000 wreaths. I wanted to touch base on, we talked about storage. Patriot Guard is one of my larger groups. thank God for them because they're amazing. Reaching out to them, we actually found out a couple of their guys are truck drivers. And they were able to actually go to their company and say, hey, this is what Wreaths is. This is what we do. And it's here at Dayton National. Then working with the cemetery staff, they allowed us to bring a couple of the semi-trailers and leave the semi-trailers on site and lock them up. And then luckily Patriot Guard handled that, passed them all out, and took care of most of those issues. So we just really wanted to share that. And then also on with the Jewish faith, we actually added in the end of our script that we use every year that's sent out from Race, we had actually added into that a picture of some of the Jewish symbols and the other markers that we're not supposed to place the wreaths on. And then a little bit of the reason why that we actually have whoever our MC is for the year talk about that, say, hey, this is part of the Jewish faith, a little bit of the background, please be cognizant of this. And if you see something sitting there, please don't remove it, because we also do the gravesite specifics. So we ask them not to move them beforehand. And so far it's been fairly well receptive.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And that's, a reminder for you guys, if you, have issues with storage and you need places, make sure you are communicating with your regional liaison, because sometimes we can often work with the trucking companies that are delivering to you. If it, for some of our larger locations where you guys are getting full trucks, it's a lot easier to work with us to see if that truck driver wants to be a part of the ceremony and actually, park the truck there overnight. Obviously that doesn't always work out. But just make sure if you're having trouble, reach out to your regional liaison, because there are, options and stuff out there that we can help with as well.
This is Carlos from Cypress Hills National Cemetery in New York City. To follow up on what Julie said, I think we our cemetery at National Cemetery, new one in the city of New York, is 21,000, and we've received anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 wreaths in there. But I think that we've had the good luck is that because I've met the truck drivers the day before, and that really, and I come with an understanding with him to say, do not open up the doors. And he says, I'll wait till you get here and then we'll start taking it from there. And between now and December, I'm already communicating to the volunteers, the various group volunteers, from the Civil Air Patrol to the Veterans Club to the American Legion, to groups like that, saying, guys, this is the way it's going to work. This is the way. And that message kept on filtering through that as I'm hearing you guys, because you certainly have a lot more volunteers and a lot more wreaths. But I'm lucky, I guess I'm blessed that they follow the guidance. Everybody wants to play in the same sandbox, and and it works out. But the key with us is with the driver, knowing that he's there with you. We've made him a part of the ceremony, and that has really worked well with us. My 2 cents.
Thank you.
Can I bring up a different topic?
Sure.
I think I mentioned this before, and this may be an issue for those of us in the Northern Plains, but our ceremony this year is December 17th. And if I happen to get a blizzard that week, my standby would be then Christmas Eve. And that's tough to do. That's really tough to do. This last winter, we had a 3-day blizzard in North Dakota where nobody was able to leave the home. So if we could somehow go back to the second Saturday in December, that used to be the day, that would be very helpful for me.
Agree.
So the way the calendar falls, we're starting to go back. So we will start going backwards, and it's always been a second or third. We've had third many times before. So it's either second or third. And I think as the calendar changes in the next couple of years, it's going to start going back to the second Saturday. It's the way the calendar falls. And we certainly understand that it's difficult, but we certainly are here to help you in trying to bring people in. Obviously the weather piece, that one I can't do much about, obviously.
Yeah. Well, we've laid wreaths in a semi blizzard before, and I prefer not to do that. It really creates some safety issues.
Sure.
Matthew, I didn't want to hop over to you. You had your hand raised for a little bit.
I prefer to lay them in the ice. It's a much better, fun function.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so I've been hearing folks talk about not being able to get full coverage. So I'm Matthew Fry. I support the Soldiers and Airmen's Home Cemetery in the DC area. I'm a satellite of Arlington. Dan Mead is definitely a significant help there from running the Arlington National Cemetery. The one thing that I've done, and I don't know the numbers exactly. I know I have some large donors that help, but I allow the youth groups to actually run the ceremony. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, American Heritage Girls, Trail Life, etc. And encourage those groups also to do to raise wreaths, and it gives them the $5 per wreath, as you all know. And that's helped me, empower those young folks to pay for their troop dues and whatnot through the American Heritage, or excuse me, through the Wreaths Across America. And what I've seen is that you get a couple young kids, and you got the combination of youth organizations and patriotic honoring our veterans, and it usually gets us a few more numbers. So, and it deputizes other people to raise the wreaths and not me. So I hope maybe that's something you can tap into. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Maisha, I see you got your hand raised again. Misha, I said that wrong too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. That's okay. I thought I knew who you meant, and then I'm trying to find my unmute button.
Yeah.
While y'all are freezing and talking about blizzards and snow and ice and all that crap, we're sweating bullets down here in Florida every year. You can laugh all you want, but it's hot. And the biggest obstacle that we have, if we get wreaths too early, they mold. And last year, the first truck that we got in, the boxes were molding inside, even though they were in, I don't remember, that wasn't a reefer truck. And it was a mess, and it was embarrassing, and people were unhappy. We managed to be able to smooth it over. We did lose a bunch of wreaths. But if there's any way you could get me nice, cold, fresh wreaths, like the last ones that are done, I think all of us here in Florida, the 7 nationals or 8, well, there's more than just the 8 nationals, but we all have the same issue because we're down here sweating. And we do not have our ceremony at noon because it's too hot. So we always have it around 10 o'clock, which I know isn't always cool, but that's the best. That's how we are in this area here, and it just works out better for everybody involved. So just asking, throwing that out there. Appreciate all the help we can get.
Sure. I mean, obviously, as you know, wreaths are a perishable product, and we are relying on donated transportation to service all of these locations. So there is some limitations to, when we can ship and when we can get wreaths. And obviously all of the wreaths go on the truck perfectly fresh and cool and ready to go. And obviously they're, just keep in mind that they, as much as we can try and keep them in a cool place, obviously Florida is a difficult situation, but work with your liaison, and obviously we'll do what we can to try and, think about that in terms of our transportation. But obviously there are some limitations on what we were able to do there. Which I'm sure
It's definitely a balance when you're shipping to, 3,400 locations, and you've got some people who, want them earlier because it might snow, and you've got some people who want them later so they're not too hot. And yeah, definitely a lot of things to work in there. We appreciate y'all.
I've always loved it because our drivers have come in together until last year, and they all, well, last year we had 3 trucks, I think. I don't even remember now. Yes, 3 full semis. And this year, God willing, we'll have almost 3.5 to 4. So when they all come in together, it's nice because they spend the night at a Home Depot locally and are fed and greeted. And then we escort them into the cemetery that morning to offload. And when they're nice and crisp and fresh, it makes a big difference. So, and then getting them early too does create chaos because people see them. And down here, the deer love them. So all of our deer and other wildlife at the National Cemetery are trying to get into them. So I'll work with the liaison and I appreciate your consideration.
Thanks,
And just
Misha.
to
Mish,
piggyback a little bit off what Amber said, the Reeds last season in Maine, the frost didn't come early. So the frost came quite late, and they need a good frost to set the tines of the needles. So it's not just going to Florida or going to whatever. It's a lot of it dependent upon the weather up in Maine where they're made as well.
Understood.
Michelle, you got your hand raised. I wanted to give you an opportunity.
I have a couple of things. One, I'm kind of curious to how you decide shipments. Like we have 2 trucks that come in every year when I think like all the boxes should be able to fit on one truck. Why is it split into 2? And then my other question is going to go to like, what does everybody do with their wreaths in January? I'm trying to find a way to recycle them instead of throw them away. So what do the larger groups do?
So
Wait.
I'll answer the one about the shipping real quick, and then I'll let everyone kind of jump in on what they do for when they dispose of them. So regarding the shipping, a lot of times what happens is, because these wreaths are delivered by volunteers, trucking companies are donating their time and equipment to bring them, and they will frequently tell us, we really want to go here. We really want to support this cemetery because maybe they have a connection there. And so we try our best to honor that. So sometimes when you're looking at it and you're like, why didn't they just put this all in one? It might very well be because we're trying to appease those companies to make sure that they have a part in this as well, because we want it to mean something to them too. And so, there's usually is a reason. Now, every now and then it's just because we've worked long hours and, we just make a mistake and we didn't combine something that we could have combined. But usually there is a reason. So if you ever have a question about it, you can also reach out to your liaison and they can maybe tell you the connection there.
Well, you just did, because we have the same companies every year. So that just answered my question. Same 2 companies. So
they probably will have 2 drivers that want to participate.
Exactly.
So
okay.
With regards to getting rid of the wreaths in January, we don't do this all the time because we try to recycle. It just doesn't work because of all the metal and plastic that's in them. But one year, a couple of years ago, during COVID, actually, the man owned like a couple of acres of ground, farmland wide open that he wasn't using. And all the wreaths were just laid out over this whole couple acres of land. And he let them dry and die. And then he went around and picked up all the metal and threw it away. And so it took time. Clearly, it didn't happen that same day. But later in the spring, he went around and picked up all the metal and plastic and ribbons and got rid of it all. So that way they were sort of recycled in a way.
We recycled about 10% of our wreaths last year for the first time. It was our first time to do it. And we had about 50 scouts and adults and that sort of thing. And we set it all up in the back of the maintenance facility at my national cemetery, the one that I own. And it was a lot of fun. And we had, at first we started trying to, take it off with our hands and that sort of thing, but we got the system down. And now this year we'll probably do about half, which should equate to about 6,000. And it only took us 2 hours and we got almost $2,000 done in 2 hours.
That's great. Yeah, I tried like fisheries, bird habitats, and goat farms because I've heard them on other monthly meetings. The goat farmers like, well, how are the wreaths, treated? Are they got pesticides or whatever? And of course, I don't know the answer to that question. So he didn't want them. So I was just trying to figure out there's some way. But I like your idea of only doing a portion of them, not all of them.
Yeah, we decided that, of course, in my wildest dreams, we want to do all of them, but you have to start small when you've got a lot of wreaths. We recycled all our trash company or our recycling company. They donated the containers to put the metal in, and then they took it to the recycling center. Of course, the other stuff went to the city for mulch. And then the ribbons, we didn't know what to do with, but this year we're going to take them down to the Children's Museum and donate them for their art projects.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you that Arlington, and you might want to check around with your power companies. We use Covanta Energy, and the ones from Arlington, we take to Covanta Energy and they burn them into power. So
wow.
They accept a certain amount of loads per day that we take over there. and they recycle them right in. We don't have to take the ribbon off. You don't have to take the metal. They burn them in such a way that they can recycle it right into energy.
Great.
Julie, this is Stephanie. I just wanted to share that something that I had a location coordinator share with me. And I don't know how well it would work for some of the extremely larger locations, but they reached out to some of the local scout troops, and some of these scout troops used the retired wreaths for kindling for when they did their flag retirement ceremonies. And I just thought that was a really unique and interesting way to really use them as much as possible. I understand that takes a little bit more with regards to disassembling them as well. And then they collected the red bows, and they had a local Girl Scout troop that then used them to make Valentine's cards for veterans and for some of the hospice homes and things of that nature. And I just thought that was a very unique idea that somebody else might like to take advantage of.
Yeah, lots of options. And I mean, like Stephanie said, for some of the larger cemeteries, like, yeah, it might seem like that's a lot of work to do when you have that many wreaths. But if you can do a portion of them, anything that you can do to recycle them is going to, reduce the cost for the waste on some of the other ones. I do see lots of people with their hands raised, so I'm going to try to jump through them so we can get through everyone. And I'm going to try to do it in order that I remember people putting their hands up, because they did not show up in order. So Lorraine, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
There we go. I'm unmuted. I just wanted to chime in. This is my first time participating in one of these meetings, and I've been doing this since 2009. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I really appreciate it when the trucking companies can get the wreaths delivered at least the day before the ceremony, because there have been times when we've had the wreaths actually delivered the same morning or as the ceremony is starting, and that's a little nerve-wracking. But I just wanted to say that works really well for us, and I appreciate everybody's input, because it gives me a lot of ideas of how we can best handle it. And having it on the second, to have it routinely on the second or third Saturday of every December would be really helpful. I know it switches back and forth depending on the timing during the year, but for promoting it in general, it would be very helpful to always have it either the second or the third instead of the back and forth. That's just my 2 cents. Just wanted to say thanks for that. Oh, and
Thanks, Ryan. And
I really enjoy finding it useful to hear how other people are incorporating the trucking companies into the ceremony itself. That thought had never occurred to me, and I wish it had before, but I'm really anxious to hear more about that.
We're always learning new things, huh? Thanks, Lorraine.
Thank you.
And then I do see, and I just have the Bourne National, someone from Bourne National, MW.
Yes, Mike Walsh. I am the Joint Base Cape Cod gravesite specific coordinator. And I was wondering if there's anything that we can do with the locator Excel spreadsheet that you guys put out for us. It's downloadable, but what happens is there's so much metadata on there that I don't need. And you update it daily as they come in, and there's no way to categorize it by gravesite specific locators. In other words, site one, I should be able to click on it and get all my site ones, but throughout the next couple of months, you're going to be adding different names to site 1 to site 80, and I've got 80,000 people out there, and unfortunately, until you close it and lock it down, I can't coordinate it by section and assign people to that. And I was wondering if there's any way you could get rid of a lot of the extraneous data that's on there and just give me the name of the specific recipient, the site, the location, just the minimals, so that I don't
we actually have a lot of people who want like all the information because they use it for different sorting and stuff. But what I would recommend is when you download it, there's definitely some ways that you can on your spreadsheet, when you download that, you download it, whether it's in Excel or Google Sheets, You can, just delete the columns of stuff that you don't have, and then you can certainly use that to sort and filter by section, so you can kind of get it all together. As far as that goes. Now, as the cutoff date for those, we do not have a way to where we can just shut it off on the site. You can certainly go in, the location coordinator could go in and mark the cemetery as not accepting grave specifics after a certain date. If you wanted, I would recommend not doing that before the cutoff date, because that's going to cut down on re-sponsorships. But that's something you could do that way. Then you can, when you go in and you run that final report, no more are going to come in through the site with people placing them.
Julie, just something on that. Harry from Long Island National Cemetery, we have about 340,000 internments at the cemetery, and we do about 400 grave specifics. I've got, if you'd like, afterwards you can send me your email address. I've got a nice Excel spreadsheet that I have where I take all of the data from the website, download it, and print out individual sheets with a map, because we're on about 400 acres. So we can sort it. We basically create two groups. We create a group of, one Excel spreadsheet is for people that will be placing the wreaths themselves, and the other spreadsheet will be grave specific where they're not there and we're going to place them. And we basically have a group of people that'll come along and we hand them out. We break it up by section, and we can hand it out by section to different people. So if afterwards, if you want, I will, if you send me your information, I'll send you the Excel spreadsheet. I think it's posted actually on somewhere on the location coordinators page somewhere, but it works out quite well.
I think you've helped a few people with that too. And Mike, also, if you are unsure how to use some of that stuff, you can, shoot me an email too, and I can connect you with Harry, or I can, we can connect, do some screen sharing, and I can walk you through some of that as well. Kevin, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to talk a little bit about the trucking companies. It was really kind of interesting to me to hear some of the sites actually receive them, the wreaths on the day of the ceremony. I always should expect them on Wednesday before the ceremony. But the one thing that's always struck me is we're always a destination. In other words, nobody's coming to North Dakota and then going to someplace else. This is the end of the line. So one of the things I see you shaking your head, because that's kind of the way it is here. We never know who we're going to end up. But one of the things I've really tried to do with the trucking companies is when the dispatcher contacts me, ask for the point of contact for their public affairs or somebody in the management team, and we provide pictures of the driver at the offload of the wreaths, as well as at the ceremony when the wreaths are being placed, so the company can feel and understand their involvement and their participation in the process too. And that, I believe, has worked for us.
That's fantastic, Kevin. Thank you for doing that. I love that.
Yeah, we definitely want to, keep in mind these, they're volunteers, they're volunteering their time, and we are thankful for what they do. And, like I said, making sure we are, making them a part, of the ceremony. And if they have a good experience delivering those wreaths there and they feel that impact, they are more likely to make sure that, hey, I want to do this again. And I will say we have some people who they have the same drivers, the same companies every year. And when you have that, you have those people locked in, it is a lot easier to make plans, because the next year you're not calling us to say, hey, who's delivering my wreaths and like what time, or like I haven't heard from my truck driver yet, because you have that relationship with them, and you can usually go straight to them and say, hey, what day are you bringing my wreaths in? So definitely make those connections there. Dennis, you've got your hand raised?
Yes, I'm just going to do kind of a recap. I'm going to step it back to where a couple of things that I've noticed that had really good points. First would be back with the Jewish faiths. You have to remember, none of us, as much as we try and corral and coordinate and encapsulate anything and anyone that we have coming to these ceremonies, we don't reach everyone. It's impossible. And on top of that, our clients will be anywhere from 2 years old to 80 years old. So there's no way you're going to tell a 2-year-old where they can or cannot place a wreath. And I've personally had this experience where I was challenged, not person to person, but someone, the cemetery, the VA staff said, yeah, this is the guy that runs it, reach out to him. So they reached out to me and I said, I'm sorry that, I get it, that you see this as a Christian symbol, and it's not. It's a remembrance wreath. It's to remember the service of the individual. I'm not trying to say, your feelings are wrong. I'm just trying to say that there's no way I can't ensure that that's going to, a wreath can't be laid. I mean, there's 80,000 graves there. So I do cover it during the ceremony, but again, there's people that show up at 8 in the morning and they don't even come to the ceremony. They just wait by a pile and wait to go out and lay a wreath. Secondly, as far as the inclement weather, we also do grave specifics, and we will go out, like Mike just alluded to, getting that spreadsheet accurate as quickly as possible. We have a team that'll go out there during the week and place marker flags for all the grave specifics, because those will be done first thing in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's usually like a bright pink flag, something that can be seen if it snows overnight or is actively snowing during Wreath's Day. So that has alleviated it. But I've never canceled. You name a weather system. Again, we're on Cape Cod. We've seen it. Like 3 years ago, we had a trifecta. We had, I laid the first tracks in the snow in the morning. By noon, at showtime, it was pouring. And at 3 o'clock, when I was gathering cardboard, the sun came out. So, I mean, we can't cover these things. We just try and do the best we can with what we have. And lastly, this has been an ongoing thing for years with the online. A lot of our sponsorships are from now basically Korea, because we're losing a lot of our World War II veterans and families. And they're not computer savvy. So if they go online, it has been difficult for them to drill down to get to our, again, they're not computer savvy. I'm not saying I work for Geek Squad, but I can get through it pretty good. But if they'll just get frustrated and they'll just say, go ahead and take my money. And once they do that, it usually goes to down to Washington. And that's always been like a pain in my side, that it should be that electronically, it should be a lot easier. So I usually tell my older people that call me, I give them the 800 number for them to call in directly. Reach personnel are awesome. I've always gotten contacted back and they say how great the Reach people are, and they took care of it. But I just wonder if there's a way to make it easier to find the location on the website.
Are you sharing your direct link so that when they go to that, they're going straight there? And I do know one thing, even though some, they're not tech savvy, but a lot of people are really getting used to the QR codes, and those are a great way. I mean, even my mom, God love her, who is not tech savvy at all, couldn't figure out how to get her mouse to work for a computer because she still had the battery thing in there. But she can use a QR code because if she has a smartphone and she can scan that, and that takes them right to that direct page. So that's
Right.
a great option to use too. And we are always improving. Yeah, some of y'all recently saw some of the improvements that took some stuff down from the system for a little bit, but we're always working to find ways to improve things and streamline it. Unfortunately, we haven't made too many changes on the front end lately, but it is something we, hope to do at some point. But I do recommend always share that direct link for your group or your location, so that way they don't have to search for the cemetery, because if they have to go through the map and they have to look up here and there, yes, you're going to lose people who are not tech savvy. But if you're using that QR code, that's going to take them straight there, or if you're using that customized direct link that you have, it's going to eliminate a lot of lost people.
You can also do a direct link to the grave specific page. You can also do a direct link to the grave specific page in your group. That's what I do a lot of. If people call me and they can't figure it out, I'll just send them that link. It takes them straight to the grave specific.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, if people make a general donation, just so everyone here knows, that goes into the unallocated fund. So basically that means that a wreath is sponsored for a veteran. It does not mean that all those wreaths go down to Washington. Those wreaths are dispersed all over the country. And many of the locations on this call, I'm sure, have benefited from those. So it's a sponsored wreath. And I just want to make sure people do know that. It doesn't automatically mean that it's going to Arlington. It means that those wreaths they're sponsored and they're going to go to a veteran somewhere. And so we use them to fill trucks. So sometimes if there's a truck leaving and there's a little bit of space going to a location and they can take an extra 200 wreaths, and we have those wreaths, we're going to put them on that truck. So it helps from a logistics standpoint as well, how that works, just so everyone knows that. But I would, to what Julie's saying too, we also have the sponsorship sheet too, and you can actually pre-populate that with your code on the sponsorship sheet and like photocopy that and make that available to people who might not be as tech savvy. I know a lot of people who do that, who just don't even bother with the link. They just have a form that has their number already on it, and they pass those out to people too.
Julie, can I just say one thing about what I found out last year about our.
Yes. Oh, you're frozen. So no. Well, if anyone else has something in the meantime, feel free to go ahead.
I'd like to say, oh, is Brenda back? Because I'll step down for Brenda.
I'm having internet issues.
Yeah. Go ahead, Karen.
I want to say this because we're getting close to an hour here. First, again, thank you guys. And it always strikes me at headquarters, and as I watch all of you work so hard all year long, that every one of you are doing this because you've got an emotional tie. You've got a real personal reason to do what you're doing, and it's important. But what a line we walk to have a complete logistical nightmare. No matter how you look at it, it's coming up to November. And to give you an idea, we get more than half of our sponsorships after Thanksgiving. And to have all these amazing trucking companies step up, all the volunteerism and all that everybody does. And you walk this line of working so hard and everything's got to be perfect and all that. And inevitably something's going to go wrong somewhere. And I will tell you, and I get emotional here, you have to forgive me, some of the most moving experiences that have happened at a cemetery when a wreath didn't show up or something went wrong, because you always, as that leader, have that opportunity to teach. And when we get to the point that we're decorating graves instead of carrying out the mission, every time you talk about having a kid place a wreath, I've over and over and over at the cemetery seen the lights come on. I remember my own daughter, when she was 17, she finally got it when she stood and talked to a Gold Star family. So what you're doing is so important. Anything that could happen at your ceremony that we can fix from headquarters, after the ceremony, we'll make it right. But what we need to do as a group is hang in there and put the best face on whatever happens, because people are looking to you, and the experience they have will come from what heart you put into it and what labor you put into it. So I've heard of a small cemetery that picked branches from the local trees and laid them on and put the wreaths on a week later. But I just can't say enough about the heart and the work and everything you put, and do know that the team is here. A new person on here tonight, Courtney George, she's jumping in there. She's new in the logistics. I'll tell you what, I bet she's taking notes. Reach out.
Very much.
We reach out to everybody, and Julie's team, Amber's team, everybody on here. You guys are what makes this happen. You are Wreaths Across America. So anything that comes up, we'll get through it. We'll make it right, and just let's get out there and get this done, because people need this right now. They need to see all of us come together and honor those that keep us safe. This is something this country needs us all to come together and teach our kids about. So I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. This really warms my heart to see you all here on a whatever night it is. It's Tuesday, I think. Thank you all. Just appreciate it.
Yeah, we do, we're, Karen said it, better than anyone else can. We know that you guys put a lot of work in, and, as volunteering your time, some of you have jobs on top of doing this, and, we don't take that lightly. We know that there's a lot of hours that you're all putting in to make this happen. And we definitely have a team of people here that are happy to help you guys with, the dashboard, downloading anything that you need. If you have questions, if you need help finding storage, or you want to try to set up an escort of the trucks into your cemetery, just reach out to your liaison, because they are available and they're happy to help answer those questions and kind of guide you to either find an answer for you or connect you with someone that knows an answer.
We'll find a way. That's our motto internally. We find a way to make it work.
I believe our founder says grab a gear, and we always will do that to help you however we can. Grab another gear.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead. Misha, I do see you have your hand raised, so I'll real quick let you speak up, and then we will wrap it up.
Just real quick question, something that I've thought about the last several years. Is there any chance on our dashboard where we leave our instructions for the public to see, that we could have a differentiation between wreath laying and then the wreath ceremony time? That has been, for what is this, my 7th year, that has been the most difficult thing to get people to understand, that the ceremony is separate from wreath laying. And I know now we're talking that could be customized. We say wreath ceremony and what time, people think, okay, I'm going to show up at 10 and lay wreaths. And I've got some ideas, and if it's easier, I'd like to send an email if there's no objections, just to see if we could specialize, do something like that. I know the last 2 years were a challenge for everybody to do something a little different. So that's one major obstacle that we have here. And for the other groups, I don't know if they all have them or not, but I do specifically have a 3-for-2 fundraising group for our cemetery. So those people that call me, taking advantage of the situation, I suppose some would say, I go ahead and make sure that their sponsorships go into that 3-for-2. And I hope that nobody ever has a problem with that, but I think that's what has helped us make our goal every year. And with our devastation here in our community now, you can bet I'm scared that we won't this year. 19,400 wreaths is the goal, and I'm very nervous about making that. So we may be setting a new precedent in the area. But
so you absolutely can use your 3-for-2 group to do that. What we ask is we would ask that if we don't want you taking groups, wreaths from other groups. If they contact you as the location coordinator and they've already supported a group, obviously you don't want to say, oh yeah, actually come over to my group instead, and I know that's not what you're doing.
I don't do that.
But if someone just is calling you up and, they are new to supporting, yes, you can certainly, have that go through your group. And then as far as the ceremony, I think we all learned 2020 was a very hard year for that, because we learned the importance of the difference in the timing for the ceremony and the wreath laying, because everyone had such strict restrictions, and it is something that we hope to develop at some point. It just hasn't been something we've been able to do, because it does require quite a bit of programming on the website to be able to do that across the board. What I would recommend now is you know, you have your ceremony time be the time that you want people to get there, and then just use a page alert. You know, that's that little pop-up thing that shows when they go to your page that says, you know, hey, this is the wreath day plans. We're going to be placing wreaths at this time. Ceremony is going to take place at this time. So that way, when they go to your page, they're not going to miss it. It is literally going to just pop up right in their face. So if they say they didn't see it, then, you know, there's only so much you can do. You can share all the information, and there's still going to be people who say they don't see it. So you can certainly send me an email with any suggestions and ideas as we, you know, go into next year and we look to make improvements.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Well, I know it's after night. Glenda, I see you popped your hand up, so I'll let you go real quick. Anyone that needs to jump off, you know, feel free to go ahead and jump off. I just don't want to leave anyone with any questions unanswered.
When we had the matching funds back in, or matching wreaths back in January, we had several people that have always sponsored at our cemetery sponsor. But when I looked at the spreadsheet, it's not showing that they come in under the fundraising group that they've always come under. How do we fix that? Or can that be fixed at this point? Because I can't ask every one of them to call, you know, Maine. Is there anything that can be done? Because like my mother-in-law, who is always sponsored, knows to sponsor under our group, but it does not show that she come in under our group.
So what I would recommend, you know, when you want to watch those, you know, kind of check in like every couple months to see, we do have that new policy, the 60-day policy for changes. But if it was, you know, like say they just did them last week and you see, oh, like I know this person, they support my group, they support my group for years, you know them, you can reach out to them and have them, you know, reach out to us to request that change. If you ever see like a big number and you're concerned, you know, as far as like why, like these are people I know, they should have gone to the page, you know, make sure you reach out to your liaison, because we always want to double, you know, check and make sure that everything's being shared correctly, that everything's working right. I do know sometimes people will, you know, they send out the wrong link and it doesn't go through. I know you've been doing this for a lot of years, so I'm sure you know what link to send out at this point. But yeah, you can certainly, if you have like something you want to look at, you can reach out to Tiffany. I was trying to think of who was your liaison. Send her the ones that you have questions about, and we can take a look at it. I mean, at this point, because those were done back earlier this year, I don't know, you know, what we can do, but we can certainly take a look at it.
Okay.
And then going forward, just make sure you always contact as soon as you see any of those issues.
Well, my dashboard access had been turned off after Dawn passed, and it just got turned back on. Matter of fact, Miss Tiffany, I believe, is who got me turned back on. And just on a side note, thank you, Julie and Miss Karen, for the wreaths at my husband's funeral and his memorial service in Memphis. Thank you.
Well, you guys have done this for a long time. We appreciate all he's done and you continue to do. And definitely, like I said, reach out to Tiffany on that, because especially where you didn't have access in the dashboard, let's see what we can figure out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, if no one has anything else, we're going to call this a night, and I appreciate all of you guys for joining us. I think this was really good, just to give you guys an opportunity to share ideas. And I think it's something we'll probably definitely continue to do in other years, because I think it's been great, and it's a lot better than me just presenting information to you. It's been able for you guys to be able to share those ideas, and we've learned things too that we can now share with other people. So thank you guys all for what you do. And if you need anything, just reach out to your liaisons or myself, and we're happy to help.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.